Okay, so I've got a ceiling now in my space, but I can't see it in this view because I'm back in my ground floor plan. So I'm going to go to my ground floor ceiling plan and make sure firstly that I can see the ceiling. If you can't see the ceiling, you can't place lights into it. So now that I've got the ceiling plan open, I'm going to go to place component. So you place lights just using the regular component tool, and then load family. And you'll see even in the default library, you have the lighting fixtures, so the lighting folder, and then architectural, and then internal. And you'll see you have quite a few lights preloaded there. So I might start with the downlight recessed cam. It's usually a pretty good light. It does have some issues, but I'll show you how to fix those. So chosen the light, double click to load it, and then you can see as I move the cursor over the ceiling, it's showing a preview of the light. If you zoom in there, you can see that's what the light would look like. But if I try to choose somewhere where there isn't a ceiling, you can see it's going to give me an error symbol. So you can only place ceiling lights into ceilings, and that's why obviously you need a ceiling first. So I might want the lights to go in these downlights to go into the upper ceiling mostly, so I'm going to just choose some points that are inside that higher ceiling. So I'm just doing that by eye. You can line your lights up really accurately, but often it's a good idea at first just to place them fairly roughly by eye and come back later to fine-tune them. So I'm not going to go too far, but I do want a few lights around the edge here. And I might stop there. So I'll cancel just by right-clicking, and you can see these lights aren't lined up very well. So now I might just go to the Modify tab and use the Align tool. So having clicked on Align, make sure you know that tool. That's a really useful one as well if you haven't used that very much. I'm going to choose the light that I want everything to line up with, and you can see that it gives me two options. I can get the vertical or the horizontal. So I'm going to choose the horizontal edge, and then now this one's actually already in line, but I'll come across and find the horizontal edge in the last one, and I can just choose that to line it up exactly with the others. So I can do the same here. If I choose the vertical edge in this light, then I can choose this one's okay, but then in the next one, again, line those up. So that can be extremely useful. Now, to line up diagonally, I'd need to add in a reference plane, tracing the light. So maybe from the centre there, I can draw a reference plane at 45 degrees, and then try to make sense of that, and maybe at least line this up using Align again. Now I can choose the reference plane first, and then here choose either of these, doesn't matter which one, and then put it onto the reference plane. So then finally, maybe again just to tie it all together, I'll select this light here, which is in line with these others, but I can still use the right arrow key just to nudge that across, and get it to sit on that reference plane. Okay, so if you take your time, you can usually get lights into any position you need. And the last thing I'll show you there, just before I render this, is that you can copy lights just like anything else. If you select a light, click Copy in the Modify panel, and then just like normal pick your base point and then choose the next point. So maybe I'll just bring this one back a bit so it's almost even. It's close enough. There we go. So now I want to see how those lights are going to work when I render. That's the whole purpose of having the lights there. It's really for rendering. So I'm going to make a new camera view that's showing that area. So just again using the camera tool there, I'll choose a camera position looking towards those lights. There we go. And so then I'm just going to bring up the render tool or the render dialog using the teapot again. And then this time I'm going to change the lighting scheme to interior artificial only. It's really not a good idea to try and use sun artificial at first, especially because the sun is far, far brighter than any man-made light source, and it'll overpower most of your artificial lights, and often you won't even know if the artificial lights are on or not if the sun's there. So it's much better to test it out with artificial only. So I'm going to change the quality there just to medium as well, and then click render. Now, it is working, even though it might look black on the screen, on the projector especially. On my screen I can see a bit more detail because the colours on your monitors are better than on a projector, but it is definitely too dark. That's normal though, you should expect that, and not worry about it because it's easy to correct that. So you can maybe see a little bit of the lighting here, and there you can definitely see these at the top. So now to adjust that, just need to go to adjust exposure. And this is standard with rendering in Revit. You usually need to adjust the exposure using that option. And so here with the exposure value slider at the top, I'm just going to drag that slider slightly to the left and then click apply, and I can see the change. So I'm going to drag it more to the left, and again apply, and then just keep dragging it until I can see. So there we are. So that's, again, the projector is really out because that looks green up there. It's actually orange in real life. And oh, it's here as well. So there's some issue with the cables maybe, because yeah, definitely on the monitor here that's more orange than green. So anyhow, that's still got the brightness, which is the main thing. So, well, we'll look at some of these other settings later, maybe when we've got the colours coming up properly on the projector. But the main thing is the exposure value, and if you want to experiment with the others, just remember they're all quite sensitive. So it's a good idea just to move it a little bit, click apply. And if you've ever wondered why you have the apply button, I know sometimes people just click apply because they think they have to. When really the OK button does the same thing. The reason you have the apply button is so that you can see the result without closing the dialog box. That's all it's for. So that's why I'm using apply here, so I can leave that open and make adjustments. But once I'm happy with it, obviously you can click OK. And so I've got a good setup now for that level of lighting. But as more lights get added, then the exposure will need to change again. And this is what a camera does automatically. It'll let more or less light in depending on the amount of light in the environment. And your eyes do the same thing. When they dilate or contract, your pupils let more and less light in depending on how much light there is in the environment. So it's something you again need to do manually whenever you render, but it's the same process as what happens in real life when you see anything that's obviously, well, see anything because everything obviously is visible only because of light. So again here we've got a basic setup for lighting, but I might just quickly show you then if I put in some more lights, back to architecture, component, and then again load family. I'm going to go to lighting again, and then architectural and internal, and show you another good one, which is downlight spot. So the one before was downlight recess can just next to it. This one, downlight spot, is similar, but it lets you adjust the angle of the light. And you can see in the thumbnail there, it's a mounted light, mounted to the ceiling surface. Unlike a lot of other families, space doesn't work to flip the light while you're placing it. So I'm going to just click to place the light first, and maybe I'll put a couple of them in, and then I'm going to press escape twice to cancel so that I can select those lights, and I'll just hold down control to select two of them. Then space will work. Okay, so then again, I'll go back to that camera view, and this time I'll just bring this out so you can see the lights. They'll be up here. So there's one of the lights on the ceiling. And you'll see, if you look in properties, that you have different settings for different angles. So that'll change the tilt of the light so you can point it at different things. And again, as you place these things, it's a really good idea just to keep doing test renders to see what the light's doing. You're really asking for trouble if you put in a couple of hundred lights, which I've seen people do in big projects, and don't know how they're going to render. Because I honestly have seen many projects where people put in that many lights, or even more, going into hundreds and hundreds of lights, and then only realise once they go to render at the end that none of them are working, and that can happen, and so that's a big waste of time. And even if they are working, you'll find that the brightness can vary a lot. There are lots of adjustments you'll need to make, and it's much easier to get that working when you only have a few lights, like I do here. So you can see there, this one has made the whole thing a bit too bright, so I can go back to adjust exposure and maybe make it a bit darker now. Okay, so again though, once you've got the ceiling, it should be fairly easy to put lights in, and just make sure you have a good look through all the different folders, so as well as the default library, where you do have quite a lot of lights. Again, if I go to load family, you've got the main Revit library in here, and so there you've actually got two folders for lights. You've got lighting and lighting fixtures. And so you've got lots of pendant lights, which we've got here. So we've got all these different lights, obviously suspended from the ceiling, which is what a pendant light is. So maybe let's grab one of these linear ones. Putting those in very roughly, just so you can see once it's in the scene. Again, I can see it in the perspective view, and then again, before I go and put a lot of them in, by rendering, I can at least see how much light I'll get from that light source, and that'll give me a good idea of the spacing and the number of lights that I might want. And as a general tip, a good balance of lights with light in different direction is often a good idea. So if you only have downlights or only have spotlights, sometimes it's hard to get nice balanced lighting, but you can see here now that I've just added some pendant lights as well as those downlights and spots, that the lighting here on the floor is a lot more balanced. So you get lighting in lots of different directions, not just down but also up and sideways. And that's really one of the keys to lighting. So again, once you've got a ceiling, you should be able to experiment with lots of those lights, and they're already set up to work like the real world lights that they're based on. So yeah, fun thing I'll say there, if you want to look for lighting families online as well, you'll find lots, as well as the ones that we've got for you in here. Philips, I know, have most of their lights available as Revit families you can download. There are some others as well, but I know Philips definitely have them. So yeah, it gives them time to work on those things, and hopefully that's the last major thing you need to do for rendering, but obviously then you can go back and work as much as you need to on your models and Anything else you've got to do?